Sam, I have a couple of questions, and we also have a questions on the chat window, which I will read it out and then we can answer. One of the question which I have is this supply planning, which we are talking about. Is it the same SNP in the APO, which is now replaced in IBP as a supply planning?
Yes, yes. So I'll try to elaborate on that part. So when we talk about supply planning, and specifically from APO perspective, APO had order-based planning. That means it was APO SNP. When I say APO SNP for midterm, we were using either SNP heuristics, SNP optimizer, or CTM as one of the tools to generate our supply plan. The result of this supply planning was definitely either a purchase requisition, stock transfer equation, or planned orders, which had categories assigned to it. So if I go to APO planning book, I could see this is a purchase requisition, this is a planned order STRs, right? And I could also see categories assigned to it. That was order-based planning. So what SAP did was, from S&OP perspective, they introduced within sales and operations planning, they introduced time series heuristic algorithm, which works on the similar principles of like APO, but does not generate a planned order as such. I mean, if I go to a planning book within IBP S&OP, I will see a key figure called as planned production receipt or purchase receipt or production confirmed. But I do not have a capability to see what category it has assigned to it. So it is more of an integration part. But in short term, yes, SAP has come up with this model called as IBP response and supply, which is having dual functionality of time series supply planning as well as order series supply planning, which can generate the planned orders purchase requisitions directly in IBP. It's a dedicated module called as IBP response and supply, which is exactly a replica of APO.
Okay, got it. One another question I have, Sam, that the challenges, if you can highlight it, because one of the challenges, even it was a APO or it is just some any planning tool, or within the ECC itself, we are introducing planning. When we talk about S&OP, the definition of S&OP business to business vary, and in some businesses we found it that person to person also, they don't understand what is S&OP, their own definition of S&OP, that what things need to be done, what things need to be included, is different within the business. So in one of the project, we found the challenges so high that we need to stop the project and we need to conduct, 2 months of planning sessions for the planners to make sure that they come to a platform where they understand what is the planning and what they need, what they should look as an outcome from the plannings. So what kind of challenges you have faced in IBP? Is it an easy enough tool, or we need to also upskill the end user community to understand the algorithms or the complexity which IBP brings in?
You brought a very valid point, Parminder. Probably, yes, let's go back to that topic. What are challenges, right? First of all, the challenges within S&OP, as you rightly mentioned, every country has their own ways of working, right? So when a client decides to, irrespective of the system, when a client decides to manage this S&OP process using any tool, first thing what they do is they try to globally harmonize their process, right? And there might be localized gaps. For example, for one country, I have a huge marketing network. So my marketing team has a huge say in my demand review or my consensus focus generation. Whereas for other country, I don't have that much presence of marketing. So it's more based on the statistical forecast, right? So that type of variations exist, but at a high level, every supply chain director tries to make sure that we have a global process to be followed from the workday cycle, from the demand or supply review perspective, so that there are not many variations to be built within IBP solution. What happens if there are variations? Then you end up having complex logic within IBP to conclude your consensus demand, right? Because then your logic starts working on, okay, should I check statistical as a priority, or my marketing focus as a priority, or are there any additional opportunities or drivers that needs to be also considered in whether the countries are maintaining this in percentage or in volume, how, which is the priority for that, and so on. So these things normally gets discussed and aligned during the uh, pre-workshop itself. That's the important point for every client. What they follow now is, first of all, harmonizing their global S&OP process, and then try to design it within IBP tool. So any tool you go in, these challenges remain. And even in my experience, I had seen that initially for one of the client, their starting point was the finance was providing the forecast, and that was having the highest priority than marketing or statistical or demand forecast. Right? For other clients, they were starting with the statistical forecast as a reference, and then they were refining their consensus demand. So it's a tricky situation. First thing, what normally supply chain directors do is align this process within the organization, try to make it as common as possible, and leave only few localization points so that the solution remains simple and easy to manage.
Got it. Got it. So when you mention about the harmonization, one thing is very clear. When we look at these areas of APO and IBP, you will find very few consultants who are actually able to guide to the business and what is need to be done. And what I see the difference is, that a lot of people, they know APO or they know the IBP, but they don't know the core of the planning. So when this discussion related to harmonization comes in, and at that point, what happened that if you only know the IBP, if you don't know the core of the planning, you are not able to guide the business into the right way,
Exactly.
how the harmonization need to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, so a
Yeah,
lot of
and
people come to me that they said that, okay, IBP is in demand, I want to learn IBP, and when I go and check their experience, they said they don't know SAP, they just passed out 1 or 2 years of experience. So I always tell them, ki, bhaiya, first learn the core concept of the planning, work somewhere as a PPC guy, production planning control guy. Then you would be able to come to know the MRPs and then the complex algorithms of APO and IBP.
that's a valid point, Parminder. I think, yes, that's the logical path to be a consultant as well. And as you rightly mentioned, I mean, consultant's role is not only to look from the system angle, right, but also to make sure that we understand the processes. At times, we also can guide the client that what process you are trying to follow probably needs refinement, right? And it's not that client don't listen to us. I mean, if we put it in the right format and justify it, I think we also get involved into those discussions, even being a
Okay.
consultant, and then try to help the team to refine the process. Eventually, it's their decision, but yes, we also be a part of the team, and then we guide them how the process and system can work together.
Okay, so a few questions from the chat. We will pick it up now, and then whatever the question you feel that we will be having in next few slide or into the further sessions which we'll be planning, we can skip. One of the question is from Praveen is how SAP Analytics cloud planning is different with IBP. Do you have any know-how on the SAP Analytics cloud planning? Before I answer this question with my half of the knowledge.
Yeah, I don't have much experience on SAP Analytics. We call it as SSC, right, Praveen? But yes, that is also one of the tool which has brought up by SAP. The thing is, most of the, as per my experience, right, this SSC has been used by uh, financial team more than the supply chain team, right? And it's the SSC Analytics is only from the analytics perspective, right? But when you're trying to generate your demand, the supply, those algorithms are not built up in those. Refined IBP as a primary tool from supply chain planning perspective. But SSC is being used widely nowadays, even by other departments from the analytics perspective. So yes, there are fundamental differences from the usage perspective, although concept level, it looks same, right? So even if you look at IBP, sometimes within the financial sub processes also there is an integrated business planning concept, but it's more from the revenue planning generation perspective, not from the supply chain planning perspective. That's how it is different, as per my understanding.
Okay, yeah, that's a very valid answer. I hope it answered Praveen's question. We have a question from Vaibhav. What is the advantages of IBP over than SAP APO? Right now, which industries now implemented IBP? So that is the question. What is the advantages of IBP over SAP APO?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, most of the clients have the same fundamental question, that whenever we as a consultant go to clients and say that now let us start thinking about APO replacement and IBP is the tool. So they ask us, what's the advantage here, right? First of all, I mean, in addition to the business advantages, probably that part would also like to be covered. But first of all, as we know that if we are using APO, APO is going to be obsolete at a specific point of time, right? That means there is a mandatory need to start thinking about a successive system, right? And since if at all you're using ECC as one of the execution system, then the obvious point comes that, okay, why not start thinking about SAP's tool, which is IBP as a successor for APO. Advantages, what I see, right? Probably, wherever you would have seen, there are a lot of disadvantages also, although APO is quite matured over the period, but there are a lot of disadvantages also within APO. I take an example here for simulation planning. If you want to use simulation in APO, what you need to do? You need to have a dedicated version for it. You need to run a job to copy the data from your live version into a dedicated simulation version or backup version, and then carry out your simulation planning there. And then there are a lot of, I mean, it's not a real-time simulation, right? There are a lot of activities which needs to be done by the IT in the background, and then you start reviewing the results in simulation, right? One of the use case I'm discussing here. What SAP did, or SAP IBP did, right? They added a concept of version management as well as scenarios within IBP. You don't need an IT consultant here to have any or set up any jobs or any copy activities in the backend. A planner himself can create the scenarios, use the existing master data. Maybe he can up move or down move the forecast in the scenario mode, run the simulation to see the effect of those upside or downside. And if this is aligned, he can move that scenario results into a live baseline results, right? It's very fast. I mean, it doesn't take an hours even. I mean, in minutes, you can visualize your effect of upsiding or upsizing the demand or downsizing the demand or any what if analysis, right? So cloud-based algorithms, as well as I think SAP has improved the simulation algorithms within IBP, and that's why this process is happening within minutes, rather than you have to spend or wait till weekend to complete the actual planning run in APO, copy it to the version in simulation, then run the heuristic version or supply algorithm in backup version, and then review the results, right? So this is also one of the use case I see, right? Apart from the user friendliness, I mean, the moment you start using IBP, it's nothing but an Excel front end, right? Planners are used to do or work on Excels. That helps them. I mean, it's more user friendly than accessing product view or planning views. You can have analytics charts embedded within the planning views itself. If you can see my screenshot here, in the same Excel planning view, you can also configure the charts. So that's also one of the advantage, in addition to the speed, in addition to the user friendliness, what we see. There are more, Weber. Probably some might come in my mind right now, some might not, but yes, definitely SAP has utilized their knowledge or experience which from APO while building this tool.
Yeah, answer to Vaibhav's question is the full training. We are basically each and every point when we'll be discussing, and then the difference
Exactly.
will come out.
Exactly.
Yeah, but one point is very good, which Sam has identified, and I have also noticed where the APO implementation was there. When we implement APO down the line after 1 year or 2 year, when we see that how the APO is working, we see that the efficiency has been reduced by 70 to 80%, and people have stopped using a APO. And when I try to grill the reason, the one reason is that it is not that user friendly which business is looking for. That is one reason, that because SAP wants to completely change the game, they come up with the IBP with the much better user friendliness. One more question comes in my mind, Sam, when you mentioned, so IBP is only cloud based, right? Or in future on premise of IBP is also planned to come?
No, no, it's only cloud based.
Only cloud. Okay. There's one question for IBP roadmap. Are we going to cover? Do we have any slide, or maybe we can cover in future? Do we have any slides for IBP roadmap?
Right. Good question. Maybe from the overview perspective, yes, we don't have a slide for the roadmap angle. And to be very frank, team, SAP strategy for refining IBP is on every quarter, they have new functionalities which are being enabled. If you go to SAP side, you will find SAP roadmap, definitely. I mean, there are functionalities like capacity leveling within supply algorithm. It was not, it did not exist till this year or till end of last year. But plan for implementing that functionality or enabling that functionality from SAPs for this year. So yes, there is a roadmap planned by SAP. They keep on refining that roadmap plan also as on when they move to the next quarter. But definitely worth checking through the SAP site to see the high level roadmap, right? I mean, whether are they planning any aggregated planning concepts? It's not there in current setup. But yes, 2022, there is a primary phase which being planned. There are additional functionalities where, in addition to the Excel UI, SAP is also heavily spending effort to modify their web UI experience, so that planning views can be also created using web UIs and being used using web, right? So yes, the functionalities exist, but refinement is going on. So from the high level process perspective, SAP has a different roadmap, and also from a detail level functionality perspective, SAP has a roadmap per quarter.
Okay. One another question from Praveen is that do we require a coding knowledge to learn SAP IBP? So Praveen, coding knowledge is not required, but planning knowledge is must.
Exactly.
Okay.